I call to order this March 11th meeting of the North Allegheny School Board. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our calendar review, we have had 2 executive sessions since our last board meeting. One was on February 16th, and the other was on February 23rd. They were both to discuss personnel matters. Tonight, we have our work session and special voting meeting. We have our technology education curriculum report, followed by our facilities for the future report. And 2 weeks from now, we will have our regular voting meeting. And now I will pass it off to Dr. Hyland for the reports this evening.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Warner. Tonight we have 2 reports. The first one is a curriculum review for our technology education department. I want to thank most of the members of the department that came out tonight. Thank you for giving up your time, and thank you for Mr. Smith for spearheading this, and as he does with every curriculum review, always hits it out of the park. I don't want to raise the expectations too high, but that certainly is the case. And I do believe that I have the honor of introducing Mr. Lauster, who I had the privilege of working with for many years at NAI. So Heath, the floor is yours.
Sometimes. Is there a laptop underneath here? The mic's on. Okay. All right, we'll get started. I apologize for this. But good evening, and thank you, Dr. Hyland, for the introduction, and thank you to the North Allegheny School Board. Thank you. Also, Dr. Hyland, congratulations on your retirement. Thank you so much for your years of service, and of course, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to become part of the North Allegheny team. So it's been a great journey so far. I just hope to get there. I also want to extend special thanks to Mr. Smith and Mrs. Moore. Their exceptional hard work and unwavering support through this entire process is invaluable. So good luck in your reports next year. Additionally, I'd like to thank Mr. Murray for his outstanding support as our administrative liaison. And most importantly, I want to thank and recognize some of the people standing behind me and some of the people in the audience. This is the Technology Engineering Review team for their dedication and hard work throughout this year-long process. This exceptional group of educators represents the full spectrum of our K through 12 program and brings decades of combined experience to our recommendations. So tonight we present our culmination of our comprehensive technology and engineering education curriculum review, a year-long process involving 12 department members, discussions with NA stakeholders and representatives, extensive research, school visits, input from over 500 North Allegheny students, North Allegheny alumni, regional educators, and industry experts. We will present our purpose, 3 major recommendations with performance indicators and key takeaways. Okay. It's kind of working. Okay. Aiming at the thing. So our review strategically aligns with all 5 areas of our district's balanced scorecard: academic excellence, continuous learning, empowering students, facilities for the future, and safety and wellness. Through rigorous curriculum, professional partnerships, expanding opportunities, cutting-edge equipment, and an inclusive programming. Our review focused on enhancing student learning, strengthening K-12 pathways, expanding industry partnerships, and preparing students for future opportunities, directly aligning with our mission of our district, preparing all students for success in a changing world. Our comprehensive research included analyzing student and alumni surveys, auditing Pennsylvania steel standards, and learning from innovative regional programs. Again, this extensive research led to our first recommendation. The adoption of a unified departmental philosophy centered on engineering ideas into tomorrow's opportunities. Our updated philosophy emphasizes that innovation thrives where new ideas are valued and failure becomes learning. We foster intelligence, creativity, grit, curiosity through scope, STEM, computational thinking, opportunities in career and work, project-based learning, and equity. We embrace a K to career approach, not just the K to 12, empowering every student through technology and engineering to thrive in careers not yet created. This philosophy drives our second recommendation, which is restructuring and enhancing our curriculum.
Our second recommendation creates a cohesive K-12 curriculum at the middle school level. We're building the foundation with consistent design process vocabulary from 6th through 8th grade, ensuring systematic skill progression across all 3 middle schools while addressing the Pennsylvania STEEL standards through authentic project-based experiences.
At Nash and NAI, this means renaming and combining courses to reflect modern industry practices, developing and implementing common STEM language district-wide, and developing a unified multidisciplinary course. We're working to create pathways that combine traditional workshop skills and emerging technologies to prepare all students for jobs that do not yet exist.
Our middle school rationale centers on student engagement. Survey data shows students overwhelmingly love making fun, individualized, creative projects and working with new tools. We're also addressing STEEL standards compliance, currently meeting 32 of 38 requirements with plans for 100% coverage.
High school rationale focuses on career preparation gaps. Alumni specifically requested more industry exposure and career guidance. With 590,000 new STEM jobs projected in Pennsylvania and 71% requiring STEM skills, we must align with workforce demands while addressing course naming that intimidates female students currently.
For middle school, we're integrating collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, and problem solving through our unified design process. Every 6th grader learns the same vocabulary they'll use all the way through high school.
High school increases rigorous curriculum through PLTW continuation, advanced manufacturing, and industry certifications like NC3 and HOS. College partnerships with RIT and CCAC provide dual enrollment and stackable credentials.
Middle school strengthens students' connection through engaging projects and expands STEM opportunities with K through 5 collaboration. Our restructured curriculum addresses all 38 STEEL standards through a systematic progression from 6th grade foundations to 8th grade engineering design.
High school focuses on professional development through equipment upgrades like Bamboo 3D printers and Fusion 360. Additionally, increasing participation through TSA competitions, robotics programming, and innovation expos.
Our third recommendation establishes continuous learning and community connections to prepare students and teachers for evolving STEM opportunities. The initiative includes 4 key action areas: advisory and review, professional learning, community engagement, and career pathways and partnerships.
The rationale for this recommendation really centers on stakeholder demand. Survey data showed a strong interest in a collaborative panel amongst educators within and outside our region. Also, our graduates specifically requested more exposure to career opportunities, and connecting them to the regional manufacturing ecosystem will provide insight to higher paying, in-demand STEM careers.
Students engaged in industry-partnered programs demonstrate stronger outcomes, including increased interest in technical careers and success in competitive STEM programs. These partnerships also fortify the community support by enhancing teacher expertise, boosting students' engagement, and providing critical resources like equipment, internships, and curriculum guidance.
This recommendation supports a rigorous and challenging experience for students by ensuring curriculum remains current with evolving industry standards and emerging technologies, while competition and club opportunities such as TSA, BOTS IQ, and STEM Fair demonstrate academic rigor through authentic performance assessments.
Alumni feedback emphasized the need for greater industry exposure and career guidance. In response, we are expanding partnerships that connect students with mentors, college representatives, and professional networks. Through authentic learning experiences like competitions, the STEM Fair, and Remake Learning Days, students apply essential skills by presenting real-world engineering and technology projects in a public audience.
Supporting the district's commitment to staff excellence, this recommendation creates professional development opportunities that keep the technology and engineering staff current with industry trends and innovations through partnering with local businesses, colleges, and other educators.
Expanded opportunities include TSA, robotics, and STEM fair competitions provide students with meaningful ways to connect classroom learning to future careers. Coupled with industry mentorship, these partnerships ensure our learning spaces reflect current standards through access to modern equipment, technology demonstrations, and expert guidance.
So some concluding comments. Together, we equip students with skills, experiences, and real-world connections to succeed academically, creatively, and professionally in our rapidly changing world. 5 key takeaways: engaging project-based learning with emerging technologies, vertically aligned curriculum ensuring consistent skill progression, industry partnerships providing career-ready experiences, sustainable programming through advisory structures, and equitable access increasing participation for all students. These evidence-based recommendations position North Allegheny Technology and Engineering Education Program to lead regionally and nationally, ensuring our students thrive in engineering ideas into tomorrow's opportunities. Thank you, and we welcome any questions and look forward to implementing these transformative changes that will benefit our students, our community, and our region's economic future. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Lauster, and thank you to your whole team. Do any board members have any questions or comments? Dr. Adams.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Thank you for the report. Did anybody look at the impact of the AI workforce reduction and the effect that has on college and the effect that has in high school in the sense of the real world learning? Looks like it's also being recommended for that reason, to have more modular education and more real world proof of learning and proof of work before the end of high school. It overlaps nicely with your item 1, but your first key takeaway at the end. But was that on purpose? Was that on accident? Are you aware of the overlap?
We did some industry surveys to a bunch of companies, and one of their biggest things was having students familiar with the AI and having them be able to go through that. One of the companies recommended NVIDIA and going through some of their curriculum and trying to introduce it into our current programs. So we are aware of it. We're trying to implement it. We don't have a full course AI, but it should be implemented in most of our structures going forward. The industry wants it. They're going to use it, and responsibly, we need to know to teach the kids how to use it correctly.
Okay, that's helpful. I guess a quick follow on, if that's okay. What's the next step for this group? Are you going to do another report? Or just somebody give me an update so I can ask the specific question? What's your next step from this point?
Actually, tomorrow we're having our first curriculum writing meeting. So we're going to use the action steps that are outlined in our, outlined in our report. And then we will assign those action steps, and we have a 6-year plan of total implementation.
Got it. Okay, then
Cycle.
go ahead.
And then your question on AI, right now we're working with Magic School and we have an AI task force. So we're kind of looking forward to what the results of that may be so we can help try to incorporate that into our class and
Perfect.
coursework.
Okay, this is my specific question then. Can you please look at the impact the AI workforce, not AI itself, large language models, helpful, tools, the impact it will have? What I'm learning is it's going to have an impact where you may have a reduction in seat need, and that affects everything a school district does. You may have 12% less seats needed because juniors and seniors should be doing more internship type work, which overlaps nicely with what you just said for the STEM preparation. But I think you have an opportunity to do 2 for 1. It actually could help prepare the students for the AI affected workforce, where you need to prove that you have done and been in the work world to have placement, and college will become more modular and specific. So you actually are onto something, maybe even on accident. It's preparing for the AI affected workforce. So I'm just asking, would you please look at that? Because it can not only affect the curriculum and what the students do as juniors and seniors, it could also affect renovation, cost trimming, and that sort of thing when you find out you need 12% less seats. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Just please take a look. You actually are onto something that's going to show up really soon in the news. So yeah.
They currently offer pre-apprenticeship programs for juniors and seniors that are interested in going into the manufacturing field. So our current classes can get placed with a job either summer or during the school year and get that with similar projects they're doing in class. They can further that, get partnered with companies, do job shadows, all that type of stuff while they're here. And when they graduate, no cost to them. They can get placed, get paid to work, and do the training.
Okay, thank you. It looks like you're onto something really good. Just wanted to point that out and ask to take a specific look at it if you can.
We will.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Gibbs?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Warner. So I have 2 questions. One, they really reflect my lack of knowledge about the program. So technology is a very broad term, right? And I like the philosophy that you presented and the idea that this is becoming career readiness is an important part of your philosophy. But it's a very broad thing, technology. And I'm wondering if there are specific competencies that you're looking to achieve within students. I mean, you've mentioned AI, you've mentioned robotics. That's 2 things. I wonder if you have like specific focus areas that you could just briefly tell us about that are going to be the focus of your curriculum for our students.
Sure. Yeah, we would like to continue again with the robotics, but we also want to streamline our engineering pathway. So students who are college bound and university bound, and with our Project Lead the Way courses, obviously they could get college credit for those courses once they are honors. But we want to streamline that and try to get more students involved in that area. We also want to address some of the students who may leave directly from high school and also get into straight to the workforce. So we're looking at adjusting our classes based upon the feedback that we got from industry. Call it success skills, applied mathematics, like I said, grit, creativity, the ability just to show up on time, those types of things. That's what we've been hearing. So in as far as that goes, those competencies are going to start filling into our courses. So engineering pathway, continuation with robotics, applied computer science via robotics and game development, and then the addition of emerging technologies. So expanding 3D modeling, 3D printing, things that are an industry standard now that 5 years ago were not so much.
Okay, and then my second question has to do with something I read from the latest AIU report. So in the latest Allegheny Intermediate Unit report, there were 2 articles that talked about cybersecurity and how a number of schools in the area are developing courses in cybersecurity. Numbers of jobs in cybersecurity expected to increase dramatically over the next few years. So I'm wondering if training in cybersecurity is something that you've thought about or talked about? Would it fall within this curriculum, or is it not something that we're?
So right now, cybersecurity is housed within our BCIT department. If some of us would, want to do a cross-curricular projects with BCIT in cybersecurity, we would definitely be open with that. That's one thing I kind of forgot to maybe add in our philosophy is we are looking forward to doing cross-curricular. Instead of this, we feel like sometimes we're siloed. We want to start bringing in other departments. So start working with our science and our ELA and BCIT. And moving forward, I think that's going to be a better model and create more well-rounded students, obviously moving forward.
Thank you.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Two questions. One dovetails on what you just mentioned about the cross-curricular nature. Can you give me an example? Step that out. What do you think that looks like?
One would be working with, let's say, applied physics. So I teach a class called Principles of Engineering. It's an honors course. A lot of the activities that we do there are hands-on applied to some of the theory that they're covering in that class. They may not have the tools and the abilities that we have in our area. They may have maybe a better knowledge background being a physics teacher for 20, 25 years. So if we could work with that physics teacher and even just swap classes for a day or two. There's some logistical things that are tough with that. But we had also talked about looking at cross-curricular at the middle school level. And we're also, another example that we do is with ELA, with OMISITs. We incorporating laser engraver into a poetry project. So the use of the laser engraver and project development in our class into poetry that they're doing in ELA. So some projects similar to that. Anybody else have any comments on cross-curricular? Keith, anything?
Through my
Sure.
Hi, Keith Banks, teacher, tech ed. Nice to meet you. Through my honors digital electronics class, around this time, I started focusing on a lot of different concepts within electronics because it meets really well with what they're doing in AP Physics 3 with their electromagnetism and how resistors and capacitors work together. And I haven't really gotten up and talked to any of the physics teachers except for Mr. Omisitz about all this, but a lot of kids will bring in work packets or study guides or things like that, and then we'll build their circuits so they can do the math. And being able to do math is great. Being able to build something with your hands, work with your hands, and actually create something goes a long way, and it helps kind of cement that into your mind and into your brain. So we'll build some of these circuits, and then they'll see, well, my numbers don't match up exactly with the numbers on your simulation software don't match up perfectly with the numbers I'm getting on my math equation. Well, on a white piece of paper, everything's perfect. But when you're talking about in a simulation software and you have different variances, like varying tolerances for different components, then things change a little bit. But the big picture is it still works as it should. So they're able to actually apply, build, and design and create some of their physics projects within my digital electronics class.
Thank you. And one more question, if you don't mind. Other than naming, what other strategies are you using to try to incorporate the underrepresented groups, which
So one thing that we are looking at is we have singleton like courses, the naming, and this is something that came across from our regional surveys from other school districts, is that teachers in our department struggle with naming. We don't know, like an example would be, we have a class called Creation and Innovation. In that class, we do primarily 3D printing, graphic design, varying projects within that realm. But the kids really don't know. They just read the name and think, oh, creation innovation, don't know. So that's one of our conversations is, do we change names and say 3D printing and more? And then that way, when a student looks at the schedule, I need to know more about 3D printing, regardless if you're going into engineering, if you're going into a technical field, or if you're going into medicine, 3D printing is going to be very important. So they might look at that title and then go, okay, this is it. And then by increasing the population of underrepresented students, word of mouth, students talk, this course is really fun, this is what we do in here, and in hopes that we can increase those numbers. And in addition to that, we're also proposing a unified course, pairing up students with mentor students, and just do.
Yeah, so this course would pair, it would have a very diverse group of learners in there, and it would be a very diverse curriculum as well. It wouldn't focus in on necessarily one of the areas that we have within our content. It would go very cross-curricular within the tech ed department, because there's the wood shop classes and the kind of more 3D printing, and just it would be a very diverse curriculum there with a lot of different learners paired with mentors where they would get to experience it. And I know we had also looked at potentially having some speakers come in to speak on what classes would have been beneficial for them in high school. And I know if we can get the more diverse group of speakers that we can get, the better it is to get more kids in our classes who would be underrepresented right now.
Mrs. Stace.
Thank you all for this report. Clearly, you've done a lot of work, and I appreciate it. The acronym SCOPE was new to me, and so I appreciate learning about that. But I noticed that the arts are not in the STEM portion of that. But I heard you mention about the poetry class and some crossover there. So just encouraging that continued curricular dynamic between the science and the arts. I work in the performing arts professionally, and I'm amazed by how much technology and engineering goes into all of that work, but it's not something that I experienced growing up in education. So I love that you all are already starting to think about how to incorporate that into this new curriculum, and just encourage to continue to keep the arts in mind.
Thank you.
Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mrs. Winter. Thank you all for this presentation. I was just wanting to hear a little bit more about your plans for middle school and diversifying options there.
We are so excited to get some new equipment in the middle school, and also I personally love the opportunity to still provide our middle school students with somewhat of a traditional woodworking experience. We're really fortunate to still have that equipment in our labs, and we're working on projects and activities that can, span such a great variety. We're trying to do projects that have, for example, in our 8th grade curriculum, we piloted a new project where the students are making a lamp, kind of an old school project, but they get to do some electronics work. They're using advanced computer programs and equipment to design parts of the lamp. And we're looking to even incorporate some 3D printing and possibly bring back some metal work. We're really trying to just incorporate activities that span a lot of different areas.
Anyone on this side? Good. I just wanted to say, reading your report, a couple things that jumped out at me were you're not being K to 12, you're K to career. And I really appreciated that phrasing. I know when I was in school, I was very focused on my college application and didn't really think beyond that. And I really wish I'd given that more thought. So I like that K to career focus. And I also appreciated, there were some examples you gave of collaborating with other departments, but I like that while you were working on this report, you went out and you talked to stakeholders, like you mentioned the librarians, the science department, PDE, and the NAIT department. So I was really pleased to see you incorporating that in your the research you were doing to come up with this report. A lot of people covered some of the questions I had already, and you've given some examples of interdisciplinary projects and stuff, but do any of you have any projects that that are your favorites, things that you do to that are collaborative with your students? And is there anything in additional types of projects you'd like to share that are examples of how you do critical thinking and problem solving and collaboration?
I guess I'll start. So in my honor civil engineering and architecture class, we have a project. It's called Affordable House Design. So students get paired up with the client. So the student is the client and there are the partners designing the house and vice versa for one another. But there's stipulations on this. So it's not like build me the dream house. It's got to be within Habitat for Humanity guidelines. It's got to follow LEED certification. It's got to follow universal design theory, all of those aspects of it. So they kind of get all these little constraints in there, but it's very interesting to see them talking back and forth. Like they'll go a week, they'll do the design on the house. Client says, I really don't want my stairs there. So then they have to re-engineer the actual entire house design. And remember, they're within the Habitat for Humanity. So if it's a 4-bedroom house, it has to be under 2,000 square feet. So it's a very, very, very tight space. So that's one of my favorite projects, and the kids all seem to like it as well. So
Is that high school?
yes,
That's it.
yeah. 11th to 12th graders.
Can I just say something? This is so impressive. When I went to school, the girls did home ec and the boys did shop. So when you mentioned the lamp, I think my brothers made a lamp in a stool. Our kids are lucky. These are great opportunities. It's very impressive. Thank you.
I agree with you. Like in college and high school, we have our career week. We talk to our kids and say, boy, when I was in high school, I wish I had the opportunity to get some of these college and high school credits. It wasn't there when I was there. It saved the whole semester's worth. So that's why we're continuing that PLTW partnership pathways with CCAC and RIT as well.
One of my favorite activities our sixth graders get to experience. We do a design challenge where they have to go through the entire design process. They have to solve a problem, which is creating a puzzle. We have a whole scenario that they kind of are presented with. And then after they come up with a solution to this puzzle system, they complete sketches, they brainstorm if it's going to work, they do computer drawings. We have built the puzzles out of wood previously, but we're really excited for the first time to try 3D printing from their drawings that they created with the addition of some great 3D printers this year. So we're in the middle of that right now. They are super excited about it. It's really great to see them go through that whole process from start to finish, from the designing to the testing, as opposed to just, giving instructions to do things. So it's really great.
Great. And one last question for you guys. I saw you visited multiple other school districts to see what they were doing in their tech ed programs. And I was wondering do you have something that you saw in one of these other school districts that you would be most excited about implementing at NA?
I would say we are at Hampton, and we observed and talked with a teacher that has a class called Engineering with Friends. So we, quote unquote, stole some ideas from them, and then we want to make our own type of course here, very similar to that in a unified fashion. That's one thing that stood out to me. We did a visitation, I did a visitation in McDowell. The student-run manufacturing program was excellent. Lots of hardware, but if we could try to mirror some of those things that are happening in these other districts. Anything else jump out at you guys when we did our visitations? The lamp idea, partially the lamp idea was something that we saw, and we were, this process is great because it gets us out of our shell. We go see what other districts are doing. We can actually bring that information back to us and make it our own here at North Allegheny. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this every 6 years, but yeah, it's great. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I really appreciate what you all do. I have 2 children that are now graduates and took multiple classes in your department, and they are both engineering majors now. And in spite of my son using a metal brake and putting his fingers where they were clearly told him not to put his fingers and ended up at urgent care, they are both thriving in their engineering programs. And my oldest is actually doing a co-op in engineering, and she is working full-time this semester, getting paid good money. And that all started because of the work that the 2 of them did in your classes. So I'm very grateful, and I'm really appreciative of your report, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now our next report.
Okay, so as we transition from the curriculum that we have in our buildings, it's time to talk about the actual buildings. And we have our Facilities for the Future presentation. And speaking tonight will be our principals that we brought on board, our architect, our construction manager, and also we have represented McClure Company, who's working with as our ESCO company. So to speak and do the presentation tonight, we have Mr. Schrader from Schrader Group, who serves as our architect. We also have Mike Arnold, who works for Site Logic and was hired as our construction manager. And we also have Thomas Whippenbach, who's also part of Schrader. And I will say for the public, this group that I've been working with and, been in education for 35 years, these groups, these companies, these individuals as human beings, they have been absolutely fantastic to work with. Probably some of the best in the business that I've worked with. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Schrader, who I believe is going to start off our presentation.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate being here. And this is, you're going to hear a little bit tonight about some of the process as well. So we look forward to presenting that. This is our basic, if we go back one step, our basic outline here is to just talk about the overall project timeline, which Mike will do. And then Thomas and I and Mike will be talking about the status of each of the buildings that we're working on right now. And ultimately, then you can see where we're going to go from here. So let's start out with a slide that you just saw, which is amazing, the facilities for the future. So we are obviously working on the facilities portion, which is item 4, and the presentation that you just saw will lead into quite a bit of what we're going to talk about today as well. So we're very excited about the balance of this presentation. So Mike is going to start out with the timeline, and you'll see how each project fits into that, and then we'll talk about budgets as well.
Thanks, David. Back in September of 2025, we last presented to the board as we concluded the conceptual design phase. Tonight, we're at the conclusion, at least for 4 of the projects, of what we call the schematic design phase. And the intent will be to continue to update the board as we reach these milestones. And again, as a refresher, we're going to move from schematic design, which is somewhat high level as far as the design is concerned. A lot of programming has gone on over the past few months. We'll then move into design development, which gets really kind of locks in the scope of the work. And then ultimately construction documents is the detailed drawings that are put out to bid. And ultimately we get prices and we move forward. So we like to always start our presentations looking at the schedule. The schedule is very, very important for many reasons. First of all, coordinating when the project will go out to bid so that you can take advantage of certain market conditions, but also to work with your building administration to determine how we're going to phase the project and make sure that there's minimal disruptions during the construction phase. The good news is, since we last spoke to you in September, we presented a schedule to you and we remain on that schedule. So we're moving out of the conceptual phase. We are now at the end of the schematic design phase, as you can see from the red block there. We also note on this schedule that the next time that we plan to present to you will be in June. That would be at the conclusion of the design development phase, and we'll provide similar information as it relates to design concepts and progress, as well as a new estimate based on that information. So this identifies 4 of the projects that are kind of running along the same timeline, the 3 elementary schools and also the high school. And again, just in a very high level, we are working through the design, looking to put these projects out to bid in the fall of this year, awarding those contracts in December, and then starting what we call the procurement process, getting the materials on order so that we can take advantage of the 2 summers that we have to build these projects. So these are running on course. And then this next schedule, a little bit longer. We had to break it up a little bit because it's NAI. Obviously, a larger project. It doesn't go out to bid for a year after these 4 projects go out to bid. But again, this is also on schedule. We're still deep into the schematic design phase right now. We still have some options to review and choose before we jump into the design development phase. But so far, so good. We will continue to use this as a benchmark. It keeps us all, honest and heading in the right direction. So you'll see this again and again. And I believe I turn over to Thomas.
Next, we just wanted to update you a little bit on the project status, what has been going on behind the scenes for a bunch of you, but we do appreciate the people that occasionally show up at our bi-weekly design discussion meetings. So it's always nice to have people there and just keep updated with what we're doing, what we're talking about in the progress of the projects. So just as a reminder and an update, I wanted to talk about what work is happening at the elementary schools. As Mike just mentioned, so far we're on schedule with the overall project schedule that was presented earlier. Our civil engineering team has started the property surveys and the boundary surveys. And there's two pieces of property, or two of the school sites that will have combined properties with some adjacent ones. One for a house that you guys purchased in that property, and the other one for the Nike site that sits beside the other property. So those consolidations and boundaries and surveys and things are underway. We have taken our design team through the elementary school buildings a couple of times so far, just becoming more and more familiar with all the things that are in the buildings. And from that, we then have been developing our models that, as Mike said about the drawings and plans that will come out, that's what we do those off of. So we're developing those models in-house. And we mentioned the bi-weekly design meetings that we've been having that some of you have attended, and just keeps the project moving and on schedule. So again, final point there, as Mike mentioned, the schematic design portion is complete and we're moving into design development. So real quick, sort of high level, just wanted to remind you all of the work that we're doing in the buildings. This is HOSAC. The areas in red are where the additions are happening, the ones that are outlined in red. So the one on the right side, I think, right? Yeah, on the right side is the admin area. There's going to be an addition there to help make that a little bit larger. And then the one on the left is an LGI, which we're going to be including in each of the elementary schools. Big priority for those admins and entry is just secure entrance into the building. So that's the big focus that we're doing there, rearranging to accommodate some of the other spaces that need to happen within the building. Then the other colored areas within the plan are other areas that we're doing miscellaneous work. Some overlaps on each school, new casework, updated along the outside walls, updated casework in other areas. Those are cabinets and things in the classrooms. HOSAC has some issues with sound transfer between rooms, so we're going to be addressing that. And then bathroom upgrades for finishes and upgrades to some of the things in the gymnasiums also. That's kind of a standard that's happening throughout each of the schools. This is the upper level of HOSAC. You can see the same green color there, bluish green color, that indicates we're doing work in those classrooms to help that sound transfer, and then updating some of the cabinets and things that are in there. There's other things. I mean, it's a big long list of work that's happening, but that's the general overview of what's happening in that school. Ingomar, again, circling the additions, new entrance and security at the entrance to that building. A little bit larger for some more offices in the admin, and on the upper part there, you can see the LGI classroom that's going to be added to that. And then same things there. We're looking at how can we sort of unify that building, because it has had a couple of additions on it. So we're trying to unify the finishes on the inside, new cabinets in the classroom, some updates to some of the existing classrooms, and then creating new spaces within there, within some of the other existing rooms. And then the lower level should be next. There it is. So we're talking about the band, what we're going to do with that, if we should be dividing that classroom. Lots of discussions back and forth with staff and administration for what's going to be happening in the rooms. At Peebles, very similar, expansion of the admin and making a secure entrance. There's a couple of small additions that happened within there within the courtyard for some additional rooms. And then you can see that LGI that's built there beside the gym.
So as we move from the schematic design phase into design development, and we've confirmed in generalities what the scope is going to be, it now becomes important to start to look at how are we going to build this. And we just recently had met with the three principals of each one of the facilities to kind of gather their thoughts, understand the constraints that we're going to have as builders, and also understand the activities and events that they have on an annual basis, so that we can kind of work around that, or in some cases, maybe adjust that schedule to make sure that we have productivity from a construction standpoint. So we'll start to identify phasing as we go through the design development phase. In generalities, the intent is always to build the additions first, because that can be used as swing space to allow us to work inside the building a bit. So our intent would be to get out of the ground early with the additions and get those done. And then spend really the summer months when the students are out of the building doing a lot of the renovations inside the building. We are working with McClure right now, our UNESCO partner, on determining some of the mechanical and electrical systems that are going to be in the building and what that schedule looks like so that we can determine how that's all going to be broken out. So we're spending some time there. That's going to ramp up during design development. Ultimately, what's put into what we call the bidding documents will be a schedule that'll have milestones that the contractors have to abide by. So they're locked into that so that you can plan your schedules moving forward as educators. So this is Ingomar again, just identifying that the two additions would start early, and then the summer months would take advantage of the summer months. Peebles will be a little more of a challenge because we do have additions that are in the courtyard. They would not start during the school year. Obviously, we'd wait till the summer months to do those. And the two additions for this particular project are at the main drop-off area. So we're working with the principal there to see how we can work on the logistics. The other thing we look at when we put all this together is where the construction workers going to park, where is the laydown area going to be for all the materials, and how are we going to keep it safe, for the students and the faculty. So all major components. The next slides I'm going to move into is going to deal with the budget. And just from a high level standpoint, again, as we move from conceptual phase to schematic phase, the estimating starts to ramp up a bit. There's more detail now provided to us in the form of narratives and in the form of drawings. So we are confirming some things. We're finding some things that weren't in the conceptual estimate, some things we can take out. And ultimately, we present those costs to you. The good news is, based upon this round of estimates from the schematic standpoint, we are within the limits that were presented back in September. We're up a little bit on a project. We're down a little bit on another project. So all of that is natural and will happen throughout. What we tried to do here with this round of estimates was put us in a position as we move into design development to identify and make decisions on what we call alternates. So we know what our base bid is to keep you within your budget, but there are some wants out there that if bids come in under budget, or if we are able to do better as we navigate through GIZA numbers and we identify scope in a better way, then we can add some things or may have to detract some things from time to time. So what we have here is what I'm going to do is go through each one of the elementary schools. What you're going to see on the left is the range that was provided in September. And this is for HOSAC. It was between 9.5 and 10.3. Where we are now with what we call our schematic estimate check is we're slightly higher than that range. You can see in the two blocks below that, it identifies some of the things that changed from the conceptual phase of this project when we presented in September. Examples. We did have a reduction in the sprinkler system in two of the buildings because of code requirements, which was good. But we did find other things that we needed to add. So those are some of the things that are identified that moved into the base bid. And then we've identified on the right some of the items that we're pricing right now that might be add alternates if we are fortunate to add those to them. For instance, the McClure company is going to be looking at new boilers and chillers and pricing those out for us so that we know what those costs will be. Replacing all the floors throughout the building, it would be an alternate as well. As we move into Ingomar, our range was between 11.2 and 12.1. We're landing below that range completely. A part of that's just tightening up the estimate. This project does have a little bit more as it relates to unit ventilator replacement. You've done that throughout the other two elementary schools, so this has a bigger mechanical number. But again, just some refinement of that estimate. We've got a list of add alternates. We've got a list of the changes that occurred. And what we are going to try to do, just to make sure that everybody understands the progression, we're trying to identify whenever anything changes from a design, maybe it's because of a programmatic item that needed to be added. We want to identify it so that you understand that there were costs added, but there was a reason for that. And we got information from your staff to make sure that we're capturing that from a programmatic standpoint. At Peebles, the range was 10.275 to 11.1. We're landing right in between that. So overall, as far as the elementary schools go, pretty much right within the range that we had provided in September. So with that said, we'll move on to Nash.
All right, as Mike mentioned, as we're learning about your buildings, you learn and sort of start digging deep into some of the things that are going on in the building. So as we started looking at Nash, we are learning a lot. Had to find out some things about the building and things that needed to be addressed and maybe other things that didn't. Here's our sort of overall schedule again of things that we have been working on. Again, those surveys are happening. We've been having our biweekly design meetings. Just yesterday, we took our engineers through the building to sort of review some of the scope that's there and get them really familiar with it. So that's happened. We did meet with the McCandless Township plan reviewer so we had to ask questions about the firewall that would potentially happen between the pool and the existing building. Got a preliminary approval on that. He said, what you're presenting looks acceptable, so we can further develop that. So that had some big implications on things, but that rolled into a whole nother discussion of other issues also. So let's start off in general. I'm going to look at this one, this slide, that I'm going to roll into the next one, but just as points of discussion. So this one says Nash Pool Option 1. And so if you started looking into and learning more about your building, about the existing building, we had to look at, is this pool actually in the right place for how it interacts with the existing building? That was the biggest part, was the discussion. And we found out that the structure that holds up the roof of the existing building bears on the outside wall that was scheduled to be removed to have the open plan between the two pools. And that's a pretty costly endeavor. So just as an effort, we thought, let's take a look at and have then SiteLogic take a look at and review an option of putting the pool in a different location, sort of spinning it around to the, I think that's the west side. No, that's the north side of the building, spinning it to the left, and seeing how that would fit on there. So we took a look at that to move the pool into this location instead. And it greatly reduces the effort that has to go into supporting that existing roof, because that outside wall can remain. With the discussion with the plan reviewer, we're still allowed and able to create a big opening between the two pool decks. So that will be nice. The unification of the team was a big thing that we needed to address. And another option, this option was actually presented earlier, and I'll go to another slide so we can see a little bit closer, and I'm at the backup one. This option was presented earlier, but did not have the seating that was requested for approximately 1,000 seats in the new bleachers, but we were able to dig in a little bit deeper and find a way to build those seats over top of the connecting corridor and things. So we're accommodating those 1,000 seats that you want to have in that space. So overall, this has offered a cost savings approach with basically the same pool, but just in a different location. Now, let me back up a little bit to this other plan just to highlight the other areas that we're working on in Nash. The auditorium being there in the sort of peach color. We looked at, the initial thought was to include an orchestra pit in front of the auditorium, so that one, the sound was better, visibility was better, lots of things. But then we started digging in and had discussions about the size of the orchestra that you want to put in that pit, and it made the pit much larger than was originally scoped out in the project. So there's ongoing discussions, and haven't reached the final decision on this one yet, but there are other issues that probably need to be addressed in the auditorium as well. There are sound issues with speakers and reverberation. There's some lighting issues that need to happen in there that need to be addressed. Maybe some new finishes inside as well. So we're still discussing which is the best direction to take on that. But now that we've been able to investigate some options, we can see what's out there and make a good decision. There's a locker bay. I think this has a pointer on it. It does, but I'll point on this one. There's a locker bay right here that we're going to take out to create some LGI classrooms. And working a lot with the building principal, there was an initial concept that stayed in the same place and basically same design, but he had some great ideas about how to incorporate side rooms into the main space as well. So we sort of redesigned the layout of that, stayed in the same location, but I think it's going to function a lot better for you with his input that we had on there. Don't want to disregard the bathrooms that happened outside of the auditorium also. So those are being addressed and updated as well to make it to better accommodate the large groups that are in that auditorium. And then there's a lot, like we said, with our engineers, we're just there, a lot of sort of back of house things that happen. Oh, this is our section that shows the pool, the bleachers going up over top of that hallway. So that's what accommodates 1,000 seats in the pool. But we did learn a lot about that building, had the engineers come in and get into the nuts and bolts behind what's happening behind the walls.
Yeah, and as far as the schedule is concerned, again, we're tracking on schedule. We're moving into the design development phase, as you can see, and this staggers a little bit behind the elementary school, so this would be bid just slightly after that, which is a good thing from a bid strategy as well as we move forward. And you can see that this schedule will move through the 2027 year into 2028. And we'll have work going into the fall. The intent here is to have this done for the start of the swim season, obviously, in 2028. So as far as the costs are concerned, as Thomas, well, I'll talk about some challenges first. We talked in the elementary schools about the logistics associated with those projects. The high school obviously has its challenges as well. We will be taking some parking spaces away temporarily because of building the addition where we are now. So one of the things we're going to do as part of the phasing is there is in the scope of the work for this project, new parking, and we're going to pick up about 50 or so spaces to try to accommodate the parking spaces that are going to be lost. As far as, you know, the logistics of closing the pool and how that all works, we're going to work out to try to make sure that that is minimal and work closely with your athletic department in that regard. As far as construction noise, traffic, things of that nature, the circulation and the pattern of the vehicles, those are some serious conversations that we have to have. Obviously, elementary schools are very critical, but this campus, the high school campus, there's a lot going on every day and into the evening. So there will be a lot of effort put in to making sure that we come up with a really solid logistics plan that also works well to make sure that the cost of the project isn't going through the roof as well. So there's a balance that we have to kind of create there. As far as the costs are concerned, we had originally identified this as kind of a $30 million project. When, as Thomas indicated, we learned a lot about this pool project over the last several months, including updated proposals from the pool equipment manufacturer that changed dramatically, and some clarity on the amount of work that was going to be done on the existing pool. So we went back and re-estimated option one, which again was the option that pushed you out towards the baseball field. We also then took scheme number two and re-estimated that. And some of the major differences there, and as you can see, it's about a $2 million difference to go with option two to the good. Part of it is logistics. Part of it is just buildability. If you recall, we were moving that roadway out, kind of making a curved road, and that pushed you out to where you would have to build up the earth and possibly a retaining wall back there. So that is now not part of the plan and saves a good amount of money. We're also not having to reroute as many of the utilities. There still will be some utility relocation that has to occur, but not as much. As I mentioned, now you're going to have a straight shot behind the building. You're not going to have that curve to navigate. And then again, just better construction logistics all around, better lay down area opportunities. As Thomas said, we maintain the seating capacity. And I think just the overall circulation of that athletic wing and creating a really nice entrance there is some of the pluses associated with this particular option. With that, I'll turn it over to Dave for the NAI.
Little public service announcement. Thomas mentioned the folks who've been participating in the project. A good contingent of folks on my right and some of the folks on my left have been participating in these biweekly meetings. We pull the partition across here and we fill up that side of the room. So just to give you a sense, there are quite a few people involved with this. Okay, you've been going through some fairly pragmatic presentation items. We're going to ask you to step back just a little bit for NAI. So NAI, you folks have this terrific opportunity to look at a new facility on the site. And so that means we've got to go all the way back to ground zero and think about what academics and education will be for the next generation. So we're trying to build for the next group. We have graphic presentation of everything here, so I won't go through all of these. You'll see these all as we go. So how does the process start? Process starts by everybody having the same vocabulary of spaces. What is it that we're trying to produce to encapsulate those spaces and those educational programs that you heard about in the first presentation? So the groups have, as different groups have been collected, gone through a variety of projects from Eastern Pennsylvania all the way to Ohio. And they've seen high schools and buildings with all kinds of programmatic elements that are similar to what it is that you're trying to do. Just a little smattering of imagery here that gives you a sense of what some of these next generation high schools are doing. And so with NAI, we had to go back to scratch, back to zero, and think about what programming is. And programming is the square footage of every space that you think you're going to need over the next 20 to 30 years. So that's a pretty big endeavor. We have a whole process that we go through that breaks it down finally after you go through all of the different programming elements to the 7 items at the bottom here. And that those include learning spaces, of course. We've been working very hard on something called a Career Technology and Innovation Hub, which would house all of the things that you heard about earlier in the earlier presentation. So that's a pretty cool portion of what may come next. Common spaces, performing and visual arts, fitness and wellness, and then finally the administration and staff, and then all of the support items that a building like that needs to function. So those are the basic elements. Now, back in the time when this initial work was being done, Mike referenced this earlier, you were at something like 274,000 square feet of program? 272,000. And of that, 45,000 was the existing gymnasium complex, wellness complex, the Green Mile, all of those good things. So that's the existing space that we still intend to retain. When we went back and did the programming, we ended up at this number, which is just over 260,000 square feet. So every square foot that we can keep below that 272,000 square feet helps Mike and his team keep the budget where the budget needs to be. So that's just an important part for all of us to remember. When we went through the programming, we came up with 3 common themes that we wanted to see the building really center around. One of those happened to be building common spaces. So we're all real familiar with the hallways that run through a building. We're all real familiar with the cafeteria and all of the spaces that are like that. What's happening today is from higher ed, we're finding things come down into the secondary buildings called common spaces. And those are what we call the 20-hour spaces because they're used before school, after school, during lunch. They're not just a space that gets mopped up after lunch is done and then that's the use of the building of that space for the day. So this is a good example of that. It connects performing arts, it connects athletics, it connects all the academic spaces to one centralized space that can be used all day and all night. Clearly, with your performing arts programs and your athletic programs, performing arts being one of the primary, obviously, we had to think a little bit about theater. So we've been looking very hard at theaters and understanding that theaters are more flexible today where they can be. We want to focus on the really performance-centric space, but then we also want to include whatever the balance of the space is as a more multi-use space. So the little inset here is a balcony where all of the seats can be folded back against the wall, partitions pulled across the top of that, and it turns into a multi-use space that can actually be used for anything, including athletics. And so those are the kinds of things that we'll think about as we start to think about the theater for this building. Slid off to the left here, but this is the Career Technology and Innovation Center. And the idea here really is to try to have some kind of common space and around it, all of those great programs that you heard about earlier as you heard that presentation. So we're thinking very hard about that. Folks have visited other buildings that have that kind of facility and have a good sense of how this goes together. So those are kind of 3 themes that we've been looking at as part of this building. And then we have, when we go actually start a project like this, we have a whole series of things that we really focus on. I just mentioned this adoption of higher ed solutions down into facilities like this. We also focus on something that you heard earlier about, which is not just STEM, but STEAM. And the question was asked about integrating the arts into that. So that's a major part of this, and accommodating the STEEL standards that you have as part of this as well. So you can see things happening in that space that accommodate those. The next generation learning styles. You heard quite a few topics related to next generation learning styles earlier. Some of those topics are addressed here, cross-curricular education and all of those. We need different types of spaces to accommodate each of those, and we'll make those happen in this new building. One of the things that we try to do for buildings for the next generation is we use the word deinstitutionalize those. Really what we're trying to do is making them much warmer, lots of daylight and views, branding and graphics, trying to bring all of those things like you see around you in this space into the buildings that the students go to school in as well. The community within and throughout, I talked about this already with the 20-hour campus and all of the program elements that accommodate those. Certainly, we want to still focus on sustainability and improving the use of that building and reducing the cost of that building to function as well. So those are all topics that we really try to focus on as we go through. So we go through all of that. We have the programming. We have this idea in our minds collectively of what the spaces may be in this building. Now we have to start looking at the site. So a couple of topics related to the site. You can see the boundaries of this property. There's a thin white line that goes around the inside of that, which is our setbacks. So you can't build within the setbacks. The good news about this site is those are pretty minimal for the size of the site. You have lots of area to build. But we know that we've got to keep NAI up and running while we build the building. And so we have to look a little bit more carefully at what some of the space is behind the building to really be able to build there. So we'll talk just a little bit about the next topic, which was geotechnical investigation. So as we looked at this site and this property, and just real quickly on this, this image is just a hair better. So the baseball field, the softball field, and the multi-use field is clearly where the building has to be built in order for the existing NAI to continue to function so that students can go to school there, so we can build behind. And when the building's finished, we move students into that, and we take the old NAI down. So there are very faint red dots all over the playing fields there, and those are where all of the geotechnical investigations were taken. So we knew, the team collectively knew at the beginning of this process that we couldn't go too far into this without understanding the basics of the subsurface investigations here. We do have Steve Simonette from Hillis Carnes on, and I know he can answer questions at the very end here if you have specific items. But two major focuses here. In that area that we're highlighting, which is basically the playing fields where we would build, they found no pyrite in the geotechnical investigations. And obviously that's a topic that folks have had to address in the northern portion of the existing building. We also know from this that no special foundations will be required beyond the typical foundation work that we typically have to do in this region. And so those two are pretty major finds for us and help us to understand that we can actually build reasonably there on that portion of the site.
I'd also add a little bit to Dr. Hyland's dismay is they didn't find any buried buses back there either, which he heard there was three.
That's not Dr. Highlands, that's the whole community.
We also know that we are looking at some kind of connection potentially to Duncan Avenue, and whether this is for construction only or as a final connection point to the site, that gives us another opportunity there. So HRG, the engineers who've been doing the civil work on this, have done this basic investigation, and it is possible to connect from Duncan Ave up next to the baseball field and come up between the elementary school and the existing NAI. So another topic that we've been addressing. This is small on purpose because zoning has so many different regulations that we have to follow, that we're the ones who have to do this interpretation with the civil engineers. The big finding here for us is that you can build up to a 5-story building or 68 feet tall. So for us, that means it might be reasonable to try to condense the footprint just a little bit and build a 3-story classroom wing. So we're letting you folks know that ahead of the game. It's pretty common today in high schools, and so it's something that we will probably focus on as a result of that. And then you get into the site itself. And so this is a site analysis plan. The red areas start to define the things that we have to protect. The white is the future building location. That's the white dashed area. You can kind of see how the sun, we flow across, and the sun flows across the site. The yellow dashed lines all represent ins and outs of the site, possible site circulation through. And we really have to think that through. Now, we've got some concepts that work pretty well that when June comes around and we present this entire thing to you, I think you're going to be very excited. But we have some preliminary information for you today. We also have to look at the grading. And these blue dashed lines represent 10-foot increments. So imagine the site flowing in that area from Cumberland Road all the way down to the playing fields, and you're dropping 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet. And you all know that as you come out the back side of NAI, there's about a 12-foot drop down the back of the building. And that's essentially because when they built the building up, they stepped it down in increments that finally got 8 feet from the front door to the back, and they actually filled under that area of the building to make that all happen. So we're trying to figure out where the front door of the building in the orange area on this goes, and we're thinking that it's probably going to be about halfway up the slope of the 12 feet behind the back of the building, just to give you a sense. When you tear NAI down, as you can imagine, with all the courtyards, the foundations, all of the areaways that run underneath for all of your HVAC and your piping, you're going to have Swiss cheese there. And so what really works better for us in that case is to lightly grade from the front to the back of the building to a front door on the playing fields. And so for us, we had to do a quick analysis. This is a very simple site section. The right-hand side is Cumberland Road. The left-hand side is the playing fields. And you can see the top one with those kind of stepping areas, that's the single stories of the existing NAI buildings stepping down the hill. And you can see 10-foot grading increments in those light white lines that run through. So the bottom is how you put a 3-story building on that site and have parking in front of the property coming down to the front door of the building. So we're just trying to give you a sense of how we think about how you site a project on there and how you build a building and where the front door goes. So a little bit of information for you. And then finally, we have to start to think about how that building is configured on the site. And so we came up, again, back to the 3-theme concept. We came up with 3 themes that we're starting to work through with the entire team. This idea, you can see that hole in the center of the building in the upper right-hand corner. The courtyard that you're seeing in the left image and the lower right image is actually what that courtyard looks like as you look across the building. So one of the concepts we looked at was a 3-story courtyard-centered building sitting back behind NAI. And there's nothing like a visual image to give you a sense of what that might look like. By the way, courtyards have changed a lot. Courtyards have changed from the non-usable spaces that are just light wells to usable circulation spaces outside from area to area in the building. So you try very hard to make a courtyard that's usable versus I think what you're probably used to, which are less usable courtyards. Another concept is an L-shaped building. The upper right-hand corner probably defines that pretty well. You can see all of the nighttime activity spaces, the gym, the auditorium, the common spaces, all on the right. The left-hand side happens to be a 3-story academic building connected to that. So that's another concept we're looking at. And then finally, the third one is a U-shaped building where you have 2 3-story classroom wings connected to all of those common spaces. And we think rather than showing you a bunch of imagery of massing diagrams, it's better to show you these 3 buildings so you get a sense of how they might eventually lay on the site. This is an interesting one only because the upper left-hand portion of this is the gymnasium and athletic complex. And if you can imagine your existing gymnasium and athletic complex staying where it is, and then building all of this off the back side of that, and then eventually tearing down existing NAI, which is where that parking lot is in that image, you're seeing essentially what your project might look like if it were configured like this. So those 3 configurations. We've also been working to build the existing building and the entire site in 3D in all of our, we call it Revit software. That's the software that you'll eventually see models flying around and into and swooping through. So get ready for that in June. There's the existing building and the existing circulation. I'm not going to spend any time on each of these images, but you can see how a courtyard-shaped building, and by the way, all of the colors represent those program items that I shared with you at the beginning of this. They're gathered around that, built behind the existing NAI, and then you could see how you could eventually tear the existing NAI down. There's another courtyard version. This is an L-shaped version with the classrooms running left to right rather than front to back. This is one with the L-shaped and the classrooms running from lower left to upper right. You can see all the other functions attached to the existing gymnasium. Another L-shaped version. So we're working through all of these with your team. And then finally, a U-shaped version. Now watch closely as you see the existing NAI building go away and new parking, new circulation, and new playing field appear in its place. So what I was showing you was the existing site, one of what may be 4 or 5 or 6 options thrown in onto that site behind. And finally, the new building in orange shown adjacent to the existing athletic complex with all new parking, new bus circulation, and possibly new playing field. So this is what we're working on now with your team. I would expect in June, you'll see a full presentation of the building there as well.
Thanks, Dave. Dave gets to show all the pretty pictures, and I need to talk about schedule and costs. So anyway, so here again is the intermediate schedule, again identifying for you where we are within the schematic design phase. We will be moving into design development shortly, but we will give you an update obviously in June. Again, one of the points as it relates to the schedule, and I'm trying to highlight some of the challenges with each one of these projects. We've eliminated a big challenge by building new, obviously, right? Because when we were talking about renovating the existing building, that was going to be very difficult to keep the educational functions going. The bigger challenge here is going to be at the end of the project, actually, when we have to tear down the existing, and the logistics associated with bringing in the buses and things of that nature. So one of the things that David mentioned was that donated property and possibly bringing in a permanent road back there to help with that process. So those are some of the things we are looking at this point. So as far as the numbers are concerned, back in September, we had identified a range of 156 to 167. Based on what you just heard from Dave, we're landing right around 164 million, which is within that range. And I do want to point out a few things that make up that number. One of them is that we did put an allowance in to build out that road from the donated property, so that you have that not just put during the construction phase, but it could be a permanent road moving forward. If that is ultimately what we are going to do, the money's there for it. If not, then there would be some savings there. The other thing that we discovered was, as it related to the athletic facilities, we do realize that some of those spaces are in need of probably a little more renovation than what was originally anticipated in the conceptual phase. So we did increase the dollar per square foot we were putting in for those areas, especially the domed gymnasium. So we have that covered as well. As I mentioned, we have the allowance for the new access road, and it does account for the new field that Dave had just shown, if that's something that the district ultimately takes as an option. So trying to give you at this level, this high level, this schematic level, a good budget, so that we can work to maintain it or possibly bring it down as we move forward. Yes, Libby. Yes. Yeah. So, and one other thing I wanted to mention about all these estimates that I failed to mention early on is that they are all in costs. So a lot of times there is confusion in our industry where someone will tell you how much something costs and it's only the construction costs. We are presenting to you all in costs, which includes all what we call the soft costs. So that includes some contingencies, some change order contingencies. That includes furniture, fixtures, and equipment, movable teachers' desks and chairs and things of that nature. There's budgets for that. Some technology monies, obviously the consultants, things of that nature are all in there. And as I had mentioned back in September, we're also carrying design contingencies. So, and that design contingency gets smaller and smaller as more detail is provided at each estimate, because the process is that we're getting more clarity on our drawings. We don't need to put that as much contingency into the number. We also factor in escalation. So as we get closer to bid day, that escalation will move. The hope is that it will move down depending on what's happening in the world. You know, that's something that we keep an eye on, you know, as far as any changes in that manner. So that gives us an overall budget summary. And again, what I've done is kind of recounted the estimate ranges provided in September. And then next to that, the estimate, again, the basically 4 schematic estimates, and NAI remains what I would call a conceptual estimate. And it puts you at about $226 million, which is within the range of the 214 to the 230. So after, you know, from the time that the new consultants were brought in, the 3 or 4 months of the meetings and deliberating over scope and trying to refine things, we land in a good spot currently, with value engineering opportunities down the road, you know, to try to improve on those numbers. So moving on to some next steps. As was discussed, we are moving into the design development phase on all the elementary schools. We feel like we've got a really good handle on the scope there. We'll refine that scope. We'll talk about alternates. And then we're really going to spend some time on that logistics plan, as we talked about before. But a lot of what's going to happen now is the site and civil engineer is really going to start to take over the critical path. Most construction projects, the critical path is through the site approval process. Very, very important, that permitting that has to go on. And HRG, who is the consultant to the Schrader Group, is fully engaged at this point. They are integrated into our pre-construction schedule. What I've been showing you tonight is a very high-level schedule. We have a schedule for each one of the projects that identifies every meeting that we have, every approval that's necessary, et cetera, and we update that every 2 weeks. So that's where they've become a very integral part of what we're doing at this point. At Nash, we do need to refine option number 2. We do want to get into a discussion about identifying, you know, what is the scope of the auditorium. We've got a lot of different options that we've priced at this point. And then, you know, really looking into that site logistics is going to be a big effort that we're going to take place. And I did fail to introduce Rochelle Fennell, who's with Site Logic. She's our director of operations. She's been very much involved in the projects up to this point. And as we get into logistics and getting into the construction of these projects, she's going to be very instrumental. NAI, as David just mentioned, we're going to be reviewing the options. I think it's important that we get to a point, you know, sooner rather than later on what that scheme looks like, so they can further develop and then refine the program so that we can confirm that 261,000 square feet is indeed what we need to build the building. So there's more to the next steps, but this was kind of a high level. There's a lot going on. So lastly, before we take on questions, I did want to end just with some comments on what we would identify as a proposed student education program. We've been involved in a lot of school projects throughout our history, and we do like to engage the students if we can, like to take advantage of being in your district, and instead of it being a nuisance and you know, all the crazy things that go on with construction, kind of flip that on its end and make it a positive experience for the kids. So what we try to do is introduce them to the design construction industry and what the career opportunities might be. And we do want to try to involve even elementary schools and just career awareness and have some measurement exercises, things of that nature, since we are working in 3 elementary schools. Tools of the trade, tours of the project, things of that nature. We kind of call that career awareness. Then when we get to the middle school students, move it into kind of an exposure, having educational sessions with them, having guest speakers, the architect, folks from McClure, folks from the trades, you know, actually come in and speak to the students about what they do, how they got to where they are, and do tours of the project. And then when we get to the high school level and involving the VOTEC students as well, really get them into an immersive type situation where we continue with the educational sessions, but also work with them possibly in an internship situation. I would envision possibly even having representatives for each one of the projects from the high school level report to the board on what they see, is going on a daily basis, on the projects. Just try to keep that engagement going. So we're excited about this. We did meet initially to talk about all of this, got a lot of good feedback, especially from the intermediate school principal on some of the possibilities that may exist with this. So we're looking forward to that and looking forward to everybody's input. So with that said, we'll take any questions or comments.
Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Warner. So I just wanted to say I'm really, really excited about a lot of what we're doing here. And as you talk about it at the end on what we can do for student education, that is just fascinating and fabulous. I am really, really looking forward to involving our kids and maybe 20 years from now they'll be standing right where you are because they got excited about some of this as they're learning about it. And I will mention the person who's been speaking, Mr. Arnold, did go to North Allegheny. So that's exciting because you've gotten into all of this and I just think it looks great. I'm looking forward. We've needed a new NAI for probably 20 years. And I can't wait for us to build something, and you're giving us all different possibilities, which is fabulous. When I went to the PSBA conference, I met different people there, and one was the superintendent who told me at his previous school, they involved the Schrader Group, and when he got to his new school and they were doing a building, they would consider no one else. And that certainly made me feel very, very good about the group that we have here. So I'm looking forward to everything you're doing. I love that you took our input. I love that you're getting the students with some hands-on learning. And this is just going to turn out fabulous for North Allegheny. So thank you for all of your work.
Yeah, thank you. And if I could add on, Dr. Adams had some comments for the IT group before about AI. And we actually work with the Moon School District, who we're working with as construction managers, and tasks a few students with doing a little bit of research on how AI is affecting certain, industries, especially the construction industry. And one of the things that came of that is that AI, although it's going to move through construction, it's going to move a little bit slower than some of the other industries. So there is a lot of career opportunities for the young folks in the design and in construction management and in facility management for that matter as well. So we're excited about that.
Anyone else? Dr. Adams.
Thank you. Really good presentation. Great quality. Very excited. Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I echo what Mrs. Blackburn shared. I'd like to ask two questions to consider, and maybe you have some answer now, and maybe some requires consideration for the team, because I'm not involved with the team and at any of those meetings. They have to do with the contingency and alternatives, and I'll just go through what it's not about quickly. The elementary schools look great. They make a lot of sense. The Nash pool looks great, makes a lot of sense, and appreciate the cost savings that was identified there. What I'm looking at in the framework is again about the AI impact, not AI itself, but the AI impact on workforce, and just trying to get a handle on that and stay ahead of it. So this is the best school district around. And it looks like there'll be a 12% reduction in seats needed for seniors and juniors, and perhaps a small amount of that, about half that, for sophomores. So when you're looking at contingencies and trade-offs, and you're also looking at trying to make a economic powerhouse for North Allegheny with fundraising from the foundation and weather any economic uncertainty, what are the contingencies and alternatives that could come into play for seat reduction, but preparing a workforce that doesn't need to be in class as much? The shared space is one, but also ancillary internship buildings around the campuses, that sort of thing, or education, transportation to go to your day job in the afternoon, like the students currently go to Beatty. What's a contingency that comes to mind? And if you don't have one today, if you have one today, great. Otherwise, please, you and the team, think about that, because that might come up. You're building in perhaps the biggest educational revolution that's been in history. you're building right in the middle of it. It looks like you're doing a great job. I'm just asking the question, can we think about a potential contingency and what is it for seats? And then number two, I wasn't part of it, and I understand that NAI needs the renovation perhaps 20 years ago. Has anyone looked at, and can you answer quickly or can you think about a contingency where any more of the structure could be repurposed or used so that you don't have the entire Swiss cheese cleanup? You have partial or you don't have the Swiss cheese cleanup. Has that been looked at? Is it a non-starter? Is it something to consider for a contingency and huge budget gain if possible? Because that one's a little further out. Those are the two questions.
So thank you. That is, your first topic is exactly what we focus on all the time. So thank you for asking it, especially the way that you asked it. Interestingly enough, the bigger part of the project that we're looking at right now is this career and innovation hub, technology and so on. And if you really look at what that's focused on, it's focused on teamwork, it's focused on group work, it's focused on making. All of those things require more space and different space than the original 800, 850 square foot classrooms. And so we're going to have a portion of the building that will be classrooms, and we call it egg crate design or cells and bells. Don't anybody take that any further than that, but realize that the classroom structure will probably start to reduce partially because of what you've just talked about. So we're going to have less of those square boxes and more of these big spaces for folks to work in. And so while there may be less people, there will be more space needed for the making and all of that. So that's something we look at. Part of that is we start to build these structures almost as if they're office buildings. So you're actually building on a 30 by 30 column grid or something thereabouts, so that it's standardized office building construction almost, that you can take walls out as things start to change much more easily than the old institutional block building walls and so on that you can't modify. And so that might actually lead into the portion about what can you maintain of the existing building. But we are thinking about the flexibility for down the road. We're thinking about the fact that square footage will be used differently by even the lesser amount of population in a building. And so that's a really great topic. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'll, as far as the second question was concerned, we did in the conceptual design phase, we had 5 different options that we looked at. And only the last option, which is the one that we're developing now, involved almost a brand new building. So we looked at, and some of those options had an A, B, and a C. So there was probably close to 8 or 9 options that we looked at. Studied them very closely, and it kept coming back to the need for portable classrooms and the disruption to the educational program, and then also an elongated construction schedule. All of that costs money. So we were kind of throwing bad money over and over again at this. So to be able to rid ourselves of some of the problems that we have in the front of the building, the different elevations and things of that nature, the best solution that we had was to maintain the athletics, but because we obviously one of those spaces is relatively new, and then build in the back of the building, and that really helped with a lot of the concerns we were having.
Okay, it sounds like, first of all, thanks for the 2 answers. And you're building in a modular way, which is good because it's flexible, and sounds like I'm late to the party on that part, and it makes sense that it would pencil to do a complete reconstruction. I'm just glad to put this out here for you to think about as you go forward. I'm sure it's not lost on you. You're building in a revolution, and please think about that as everybody's going forward. But it's exciting, and it looks like you already were, just like the group earlier, nailing it. You're onto some good stuff. So thank you.
Dr. Gibbs.
Yes, I just want to reiterate, really excellent presentation. I want to thank you for that really excellent presentation. Quick question, with regards to the cost for building the new NAI, it looks like, if I understand, the original concept was a 2-story building, and now we're talking about a 3-story building, but the cost only went up by about $11 million. And I was just curious, it seemed like I didn't think you could add a floor for $11 million. So I was wondering if there's something else that got taken away or changed or something to keep that cost down?
Well, we were at 272,000 square feet for the entire facility, including obviously maintaining 45,000 or so square feet of existing and then building on new. When the Schrader Group did the reprogramming, it actually came in at a lesser square footage. So the difference between building single story, 2-story, and 3-story, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. But to be honest with you, with the 3rd story and building it somewhat in a modular way, that helps with productivity, which helps bring construction costs down. So we were kind of excited to see that moving forward. There's some efficiencies associated with that, but ultimately it is a smaller building than what was presented to you.
I see. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I just wanted to say I have enjoyed being part of this process and getting to tour different buildings and being able to sit in your biweekly meetings and all the information you have provided in the minutes of your biweekly meetings. So that's been great because I feel very informed, and in fact, this felt almost a little repetitive to me because I have had access to so much information ahead of time. But I'm so thrilled you guys were here this evening to be able to present it so that our community was able to hear. And I hope there are people online listening or who will come back and refer to this presentation when it is up, because it is up in board docs, because I think I can speak for the board when I say we're very excited about these upcoming renovation projects, and we would like our community to be really excited too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we will move on to speakers on voting items. And this is for voting items only. We have 3 voting items this evening. No one has pre-registered, but is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on a voting item? There's additional time at the end of the meeting to speak on any topic, but this is for voting items only. Mr. Harrison. You have 2 minutes, and I believe you know the drill.
Good evening, John Harrison, McCandless. This day has come, which is a sad day for the district. 3 years ago, we hired a great person, and he's done great things for the district. The one thing that I see there's a problem with how you guys pick this up is we don't have a superintendent for one day during the time frame between when Dr. Highlands is done and our new superintendent takes over. Is that any concern from a legal standpoint of not having a sub? That's okay. Perfect. Dr. Highland, I hope you wear your black and gold proudly when you go back home. We know you are not from NA. And when we are in town at football games, we hope to see you there cheering on the Talbots. I mean, the Talbots, geez, oh man. I am you won't have to worry about that. I graduated from, I was a Talbot, so I gotta say that. But from the standpoint of meeting us on the field, it's been a great pleasure working with you. You've done a lot of great things for the district. You will be missed. And you got some big shoes to fill, but you'll do one heck of a great job because you've been great to work with so far. So definitely look forward to it and come back and see us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes on a voting item? That podium's big, but I don't think there's anyone else. So next we will move on to our student activities report, Ms. Pagnato and Ms. Jin.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. 85 DECA members competed at the State Career Development Conference in Hershey for 3 days in February, where the team delivered an outstanding performance. 4 students earned first place finishes and 35 members qualified to advance to the International Career Development Conference in Atlanta this April. Looking ahead to March, the team will focus on preparing competitors for the upcoming international competition. Additionally, the NA Tiger Marching Band will travel to Chicago on March 12th for its annual trip. Along the way, students will participate in an educational clinic and music rehearsal at the University of Akron before performing in the Chicago St. Patrick's Day Parade. The band looks forward to showcasing its talents on a national stage while proudly representing North Allegheny.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. The NA fencing team finished their 25-26 season strong as champions. The boys team took first place overall, with freshman Shen Wei Jr. placing second individually. The girls team followed closely, securing second place overall, with senior Angela Wei winning first place individually. The team will continue club practice each Friday in the NAI cafeteria until May 22nd. They are very happy with this year's season and excited to see what new heights they will reach next year. During March, the Project Water leadership team met to finalize timelines for their annual dodgeball event, including their launch video, online and in-person registration, and t-shirt order date. They created a registration poster, volunteer registration poster, and updated their waiver and release forms. Necessary website updates were made for online registration beginning March 4th. The team looks forward to another successful tournament. And to end my report, I wanted to congratulate Dr. Highland on his retirement. You've done so much for NA during your time as superintendent, and I hope that you get to spend a lot of time with your family after your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you both for your report. Do any board members have any questions or comments? Dr. Adams.
Thank you for tending to this and reporting to us. Appreciate it. Sometimes there's really fascinating news. Other times I just appreciate that you're keeping a pulse on this. So thank you.
Ms. Pagnato, thank you for highlighting the marching band trip. I get to go on this trip. We'll be leaving early tomorrow morning, and I'm really looking forward to it. And so let's see. Now we are going to move on to this evening's 3 voting items. They are a public school facility improvement grant application, retirement of Superintendent Brendan Highland, and the appointment of a new superintendent. Would someone like to move these items?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I don't believe we need to separate these items, but if anyone wants to separate them, this is now your time to make a motion to separate. But okay, looks like we're good. And I would like to take these item by item. Does anyone have any comments on the grant application? Okay, seeing none, I just want to say thank you to the people who worked on this application. I'm really hoping it's successful. Second, Dr. Highland, I'd just like to quickly thank you for your service to North Allegheny. The board will spend more time at our June meeting sharing our thoughts on your dedication to the district and congratulating you on retirement. I assume if everyone is okay with that plan, and we can move on to the next item, correct? Okay. So now we move on to the appointment of a new superintendent. And I would like to read a statement on behalf of the entire board. Dr. Highland recently informed the board of his intention to retire after 35 years in education, including his service as superintendent of North Allegheny. We are deeply grateful for his efforts over the past 3 years and the lasting impact he has made on our students, staff, and community. Under Dr. Highland's stewardship, our students and staff are safer, and he initiated significant facility and infrastructure projects that are progressing well. He has also led the development and implementation of a comprehensive strategic plan that has brought focus, alignment, transparency, and measurable growth across the district. The board strongly believes North Allegheny is on a positive trajectory. There is a belief that when you are pleased with an organization's direction, you build from within. When you are not, you look outside for change. The board could not be more confident in North Allegheny's direction and deeply believes in maintaining continuity, stability, and leadership within our administrative team to preserve and extend the progress underway. Given the strong momentum within the district, the board is pleased to announce that we have come to terms with Mr. Duramo, our current Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, who will transition to the role of superintendent this July upon Dr. Highland's official exit from the district. The board is keenly aware of his work during his 7 years as an administrator in North Allegheny, and we believe that he will carry the torch and continue to lead our district forward. Mr. Duramo has been Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education for 2 years. He previously was the principal of Ingomar Middle School for 5 years, where he earned the respect and admiration of students, staff, and families. Before joining North Allegheny, he was also Assistant Superintendent of the South Fayette Township School District. His experience, leadership, and deep understanding of our district position him well to accelerate the progress that is underway. Mr. Duramo has played an integral role in shaping our strategic comprehensive plan, offering thoughtful insight and a forward-looking perspective to ensure the district's direction remains centered on measurable student growth and achievement. In his prior district, he led significant new construction and renovation initiatives, intentionally designing learning environments that enhance safety, collaboration, innovation, and high-quality instructional experiences. Above all, his proven leadership and decision-making are grounded in a steadfast commitment to advancing the well-being, academic progress, and overall success of every student. Please join us in thanking Dr. Highland for his dedicated service and in congratulating Mr. Duramo as he prepares to lead North Allegheny into what we believe will be a bright future. In addition to that statement, now I'd like to know if there are any board members who would like to share individual comments. Dr. Adams.
Thank you, Dr. Highland. It's been great working with you briefly. Congratulations. And you're ready for these words. I know you are. Don't mess up.
Anyone else? Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I felt really great years ago when I found out that Mr. Duramo was coming to North Allegheny. I knew a lot about South Fayette, and I felt that they were really first and foremost with the hands-on projects and critical thinking. And I went to visit that school because they were really on top of their game. And so for us to be able, and I'll use the word steal, to steal a great, great person was going to be fantastic, I felt. And nothing happened to prove otherwise. He was known for making everyone feel connected. That's something that was told to me by a person from South Fayette. And he did the same here. He really has been great. You always hear complaints at our level. Never have I heard anyone complain. He's been fantastic. He's, yeah, I get that home too. But he is so student-centered and really, really focused on, I think, all people, but especially student-centered. And I know that I firmly support him for this position. I know Mr. Weniger actually called me today and asked me to let everyone know how great he felt about your appointment also. And as you mentioned, we have a fabulous strategic plan, and he's going to continue that. And the whole board really supports the strategic plan that Dr. Highland formed and brought to us. And this is just going to keep moving the district forward. So I feel as though we're making a great move for North Allegheny. And I will give an early congratulations, but we'll wait for the vote. So we're really looking forward to it. And thank you for all of your work.
Anyone else? Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Duramo. Excited for you to take on this new role and lead the district. Looking forward to seeing how North Allegheny continues to improve under your guidance. And what most impresses me about Mr. Duramo is he always brings every conversation back around to what's best for kids. And I just think that's what every school district should be about, what's best for our students. So thank you so much for taking this on. We're looking forward to working with you for a long time.
Anyone else? Mrs. Faith.
I'll keep my praise for Dr. Highland until a later date, but thank you so much. Mr. Duramo, we are excited to welcome you to our team of 10, and I look forward to working with you. I know I'm newer here and haven't had much of an opportunity yet, but from what I have seen, you are engaging and you are wonderful with the kids, and you're easy to work with. I won't ask your wife about that either, but appreciate that you are willing to dive in and take on such a big job that is being left for you. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I do have some additional comments. First, in the interest of transparency, I'd like to note that while the initial salary in the voting item is $225,000, the contract does include a $5,000 increase upon Mr. Duramo obtaining his doctorate, and he anticipates getting this year, possibly even before he starts on July 1st. Second, I would like to thank the whole board for their participation in the superintendent transition process. Hiring a new superintendent is one of the board's most challenging tasks, and this decision came after multiple executive sessions, numerous phone calls, and many contract drafts. Members were willing to put in the time, listen to each other, and compromise. And I'm especially grateful to our newest board members and those who haven't hired a superintendent before. You were all willing to speak up, question those of us who've done this before, but also listen and consider different points of view. I am not only pleased with our decision to appoint Mr. Duramo, but also how we worked together through the process. And I've been asked from the community members, why didn't you do an open search for superintendent? And we did discuss this option as a board. And could we have done an open search and found a candidate with more superintendent experience? Absolutely. But could we have found a candidate more in tune with the current state of North Allegheny and more knowledgeable of our strategic plan, our goals, and of how to accomplish them? No. No candidate could have that background to the degree that Mr. Duramo does. If we hired an external candidate, it could take them up to a year for them to get up to speed on the district's strengths and weaknesses and build the kind of relationships you need to implement change and make progress. I value the stability we can maintain by making an internal hire. Since I started attending board meetings in 2012, this district has suffered through years of turmoil and initiative fatigue. I have served just over 6 years as a board member, and Mr. Duramo will be my 4th superintendent, not counting 2 interims. The consistency he'll be able to provide is incredibly important to me. Additionally, Mr. Duramo's dedication to student empowerment and his willingness to accept feedback are key reasons why I've concluded he's the best fit for our district. And now, seeing no other comments, we are ready for the vote.
The vote is open.
And once Ms. Weidman announces the results, I hope you will all join me in congratulating him and supporting him as he transitions into his new role. I don't think I ever joined the meeting now that I think about it.
Mrs. Warner, how would you like to vote?
I will vote aye.
Thank you. The vote is now closed, and it passes unanimously, all 3 items.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge my wife. Well, it's a little louder than I thought, sorry. Barb, my one daughter that's here tonight, Mia, senior, state champion, will be going off to college next year. My oldest daughter's in college, and my youngest daughter is under the weather, which is my fault from a few days ago, so she'll get better soon. First of all, I'm extremely humbled and excited and honored to accept this appointment as the next superintendent. To the board of directors, I understand the expectations, the commitment, and the dedication that comes with this honor. And I will work my hardest not to let you down and not just to meet those expectations, but to exceed them. You're not just hiring me, Dave Duramo, in a position, you're hiring our entire team. And every success that I've ever had the opportunity to accomplish is never done by myself. It's always been the collective effort of a team. And I will acknowledge them also a little bit later. But I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Dr. Hyland. While I had the opportunity to serve at Ingomar Middle School principal, and I know Ms. McCartney's in the audience, and I want to especially acknowledge her, the administrative assistant, who's the hidden gem of Ingomar Middle School and really helped keep that building moving along and transitioning me to North Allegheny. One of the first times I had the opportunity to meet you when you became the superintendent was at Ingomar. And you made an effort to go around to each individual building and had heart-to-heart conversations with the administrators. And you asked 2 very simple questions, but really required difficult answers. What do we do well, and what can we do better? Those are difficult conversations in organizations and institutions that are already celebrated and have a lot of success and tradition. but you pushed us. And you said it's okay to be vulnerable, because if we're truly going to seek excellence, we have to be honest with ourselves. And beyond feelings and opinions, it was to dig deeper into data. And we have grown as an institution for that effort and your willingness to push us. That same information was utilized and captured in conjunction with the members of the board at the retreat and in the development of our strategic plan. And we continue to move that forward in focusing on that continuous growth. We have award-winning programs, academics, athletics, the activities, and the arts, and it's our goal for those to continue. But the continuous focus on growth will continue to keep us moving forward with the main interest of always keeping the kids at the forefront of our decision-making. So I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your challenge, and it's an honor to continue that legacy and moving forward as a representative of the entire team and as a member of that team. I'm excited to do that. I also do want to acknowledge our entire administrative team. There's always a philosophy of we ahead of me. From every building principal in the district and our executive council team, we all complement each other. We all have various strengths. We all have areas of growth. That's the healthy organization that we have. So I look forward for each of you as the administrative team to keep pushing me and demand that same excellence that Dr. Highland demanded of us so that we continue to move forward. But I'm grateful. We have a very positive synergy. We have our goals outlined that have been heavily focused and discussed today, and I know we'll continue to move forward. To our teachers and support personnel, I wouldn't trade our teaching staff, and I see Mr. Harrell here as a representative of leader of our NAFTA organization for any organization outside of North Allegheny. Kids first, now and always, the first conversation that I had with Mr. Harrell upon coming to North Allegheny. It's my honor to continue to work with him and lead our teachers as we continue to grow and move forward as an organization. But our collective efforts will always remain preparing our students for success in a changing world. Mr. Lauster talked about the technology education and interdisciplinary teaching, the design behind our design team and our architects and our construction management to design a building based on the programming, not the programming around the building. And that will continue to be our focus. But we have several exciting projects and other initiatives on the horizon, and I'm excited to work alongside and serve the district in the highest form of capacity that I'm able to. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Duramo. Now we will move on to our reports, and we'll start with Ms. Hardy and the curriculum report.
Thank you, Mrs. Werner. This month, there are 9 items for board action and 1 item for information only in the curriculum report. Board action items include approval for several student trips, including the AFJ ROTC cadets trip to Washington, D.C., the DECA International Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, the Junior Classical League trip to State College, Pennsylvania, the Science Club students to attend the PJAS State Competition in State College, Pennsylvania, the Gold students to travel to the 2026 High School National Championship Tournament in Georgia, and the required waiving of board policy 241 where appropriate for those trips to happen, as well as the dates for the 5th graders to go to Camp Conaquee next school year. And finally, an affiliation agreement with Westminster College. The information only item includes details of a student teacher request for this spring.
Any questions or comments on the curriculum report?
None.
Okay, next we will move on to the finance report. Mrs. Blackburn, could you present those items this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Warner. We have 8 items that we will be voting on next week. The first is monetary donation. The second is also a monetary donation. The third is the AIU 2026-2027 Program of Services budget. Fourth, student expenditures for January 2026. Fifth, accounts payable list. The sixth item will be budget transfers. The second, the GASB 75 Valuation and Related Services Agreement. And the eighth and final voting item will be the Series 2026 bond offering not to exceed resolution. We also will have two information items, the 2025-26 February forecast, and the other information on the item will be the ending cash balances for February 28th, 2026. That concludes the finance folder.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. Any questions or comments on these items? All right, seeing none, we will move on to Dr. Gibbs and the Human Resources Report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. There will be 8 items that we will be voting on at our next meeting in the Human Resources folder. Resignations and retirements, appointments, wage and status changes, leaves of absence, honorarium, club activities, and supplemental contracts.
Any questions or comments on this report?
Just one brief comment. So under resignations and retirements, there are just a few resignations listed, but one that I wanted to call out, Ms. Patty Kachik. She's been the coordinator of special education, gifted education for 13 years, a difficult job, and we appreciate all the effort in that job and wish her well in her retirement.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to the Property and Supplies Report. Mrs. Light.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. We'll have 7 items for the March 25th meeting under Property and Supplies. The first is the acceptance of bid for electrical panel upgrade at Newman Stadium. The second, purchase and installation of univents and associated digital controls at Ingomar Middle School. The third is the barrel center replacement of gutters and downspouts. The fourth is electrical panel upgrade, transportation facilities building. The fifth is the approval of district-wide chiller and cooling equipment maintenance contract. The sixth is the approval of contract for roof coating at Franklin Elementary School. And the seventh is the acceptance of a donation from the Franklin Elementary School PFA.
Any questions or comments on these items? Okay, then we will move on to Mrs. Thays and the School Board Report.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. We will have one item to vote on at our March 25th meeting, which is the school board meeting dates for our 2026-2027 school year.
Any questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, we will move on to the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Hyland. We will move on to the Student Services Report and Mrs. Blackburn. My apologies.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. We will have 2 items for board action next week. The first is a services agreement with the day school. The second is an agreement with St. Anthony School Programs. And then for information only, we have a Watson Institute letter of agreement.
Any questions or Dr. Adams?
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Mrs. Blackburn, could you please give me a one-sentence summary of the service provided for those? Just a general overview of the service. I was reviewing them just as a
Some of our
refresher.
students require, in order for them to get a better education, they need to go to a school that would be more oriented to the special services that they would need. And so these are programs that will help some of our students, sometimes who are in some ways more disabled or less advantaged.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, now we will move on to the Superintendent's Report and Dr. Hyland.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Warner. We have 14 items for board action this month. The first one is NA Foundation financial review and the 990 IRS filings. We have the LPR partnership with McCandless Police Department. We have a team program agreement with Adidas. We have professional seminars, professional development, or student sponsorship travel. We have second reads for the following policies: 202, 204, Policy 205, Policy 206, Policy 208, Policy 209, Policy 218.3, Policy 236, Policy 247, and Policy 251. We also have several informational items regarding policy. It would be first reads for the following policies: Policy 207, Policy 209.2, Policy 215, Policy 216, Policy 216.1, Policy 217, Policy 218, Policy 218.1, Policy 218.2, Policy 221, and Policy 204.1. That's the most I've ever had.
Thank you, Dr. Highland. Any questions or comments on these items? Dr. Gibbs?
Yes, regarding item number 2, the LPR partnership with McCandless Police Department. So this is we've had some discussions about this. I have a lot of concerns and reservations about this topic. And I want to start by thanking Chief Harpster for taking the time to talk with me at some length. I also asked a lot of questions. He answered all of my questions, so I'm very grateful for that. So just very briefly, the LPRs are part of a powerful surveillance technology. And I understand why law enforcement likes them. They're very powerful, but they also have their problems. And some of the problems, I'll be very brief, some of the problems include, for example, they can make mistakes. They can misread license plates. And so there are a number of incidents that have been reported where individuals or families have been detained, sometimes dragged out of their cars at gunpoint because their license plate got misread by an LPR. So there are a number of those cases. Then there are incidents where the systems were misused or abused by people who have access to that information in order to track people that shouldn't be tracked, tracking their exes, tracking their girlfriends, finding out where people are hanging out, who they're hanging out with, and so forth, in ways that they're not supposed to do. And there are hundreds of those incidents that have been reported. And then finally, it's been well documented that federal organizations like ICE are using the LPR systems in combination with other databases to hunt people down, detain them, potentially deport them, so much so that some communities that have these systems installed have decided to turn them off because they don't want ICE being able to use them in order to hunt people down. So, I think about this, and I think, we are a school system. We are not an extension of local law enforcement. And I feel that as a school system, I really can't support us participating in a system that I feel could potentially be used or misused in ways that could cause significant harm to members of our community. I understand that there's some potential benefit to safety to our students, but in my view, that benefit is very, very, very tiny compared to the potential harm that could occur to members of our community. And so I can't in good conscience support that initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. Would anyone else like to speak on that item? Or any item in this folder? Mrs. Blackburn.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I must say I take the opposite opinion. I did not know that he was going to say these things, but I will tell you when it comes to student safety, I absolutely want to spend $11,000 to ensure that a possible child molester doesn't come onto our campus. I look at things with this, and I do not think that any of our officers are going to be dragging people out of their cars. And this is going in whether we wanted access to it or not. That's another big point. McCandless is putting these in. So it's just a question of whether we get access, and us getting access helps ensure that we have safety on our campuses. And the whole reason that I wanted a police force is to ensure the safety of our students. So anything that allows our police force to ensure safety better is a great thing. And so I'm very much for this, and I feel sure that our police force is going to use it appropriately. And so I'm quite confident of this, and I think $11,000 is a very small price to pay to ensure student safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn. Anyone else? Dr. Adams.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Thank you, Mrs. Blackburn, and thank you, Dr. Gibbs. I would just want to put the statement forward that while I hear the freedom, justice, civil liberty point, I also am more concerned about student safety. And so I would suggest that we look at the balance of cases, as Dr. Gibbs brought forth some cases that could be problematic for utilizing those cameras. perhaps a couple more cases of where it helped or can help for safety should be documented or discussed at some point at the appropriate forum. And my current thinking is more in favor of safety for the students in the school district.
Thank you, Dr. Adams. Anyone else? I agree that I think Dr. Gibbs has some valid points. I know there's many members of our community that share that point of view. When I look at this item, I really consider it through the lens of, as a school director, how can I best protect the safety of our students? The camera at the main entrance of Nash is going up regardless of whether we join with McCandless in this agreement. So it's happening anyway. I don't like the fact there's cameras out there all over the place looking at my license plate, but that's the way it is right now. And I do believe having access to this license plate reader database can help us protect our students. And the organization, the license plate reader company, has given us assurance in writing that they do not share information with ICE. So we will, I guess, see how that vote goes in 2 weeks. Any other questions or comments on this folder? Okay. Seeing none, we move on to speakers on non-voting items. We do not have any pre-registered speakers this evening, but if anyone would like to speak for up to 2 minutes on any topic, now is your time to do so. This is not a back and forth, but we are here to listen to your concerns. And when you come to the microphone, please share your name and your address unless you have already filled out a comment card in the back. Is there anyone who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes on any item? Mrs. Lessig. Oh, I don't.
Okay.
Board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My disabled father was a watchmaker. He and my disabled mother built the home where my husband and our twin disabled daughters live here today in McCandless Township. I grew up a North Allegheny Tiger and was part of the very first class to attend Hozak Elementary School from kindergarten through 5th grade. My family has roots in this district and has supported North Allegheny over generations as residents, taxpayers, and members of this community. I did not make the decision to enroll my children in cyber school lightly. That decision came after efforts to have their complex needs met and after those needs remained unmet. Cyber education was chosen because it best supports their health, their learning, and access to education. It is a lawful and appropriate decision and one that deserves respect. Rather than collaboration and support, my family has encountered actions that are not responsive to our children's and our family's needs. I am asking for reflection, restraint, and accountability. Families who make good faith educational decisions for disabled children should be met with respect. I hope this board will reflect on the message it sends to families like mine and chooses a path that honors the community and the values North Allegheny has long stated it upholds. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Harrison, did I see your hand?
Try to get out of here without something being controversial, but I see we have it. The fact that the license plate readers could save one of our students, if it does, it's $11,000. It's well spent. The community is split. If you put rules in place as far as who can use them and who has access to them, you don't have to worry about somebody following their girlfriend or seeing who's where, because you're not going to have access to it. The people that have access to it is the chief of police from NA. The local police departments have access to it. The superintendent would have access to it, and you can limit it to that by the rules you put in place. So you can protect what you're worried about if you choose to. But by not doing it, the cameras are coming. They're going to be here. They're everywhere now. They're all over up and down McKnight Road. You don't know they're there. They're there. So If you can go and make a difference and save somebody, whether there's somebody on campus that last year we had issues during the football season, that there was somebody that caused threat to the district. If you can see them when they're coming, it's a heck of a lot better to catch them outside of the parameters of the district, meaning out on 19, instead of them coming into the district and coming on campus. I was at that football game when that was going down. The tension was high. The district did a great job of warding off the thing. Give them a tool that they can use. Vote yes.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for up to 2 minutes on any topic? Okay, seeing none. Closing items. Does any board member have any announcements or reminders? All right. Well, then we are adjourned.